Alex Haley is fake. Everything he did, he wrote a 1976 book called Roots about his ancestry, his family history, all these black people that lived before him. You know, it goes all the way back to his childhood. It goes from Kunta Kinte, African from slave who was born in Africa but stolen and sent to America to be abused, and he used to run away and be captured and beaten and had his body parts cut off. It was horrible. I don't want to get into that. He had to deal with a lot pain and suffering of having his child stolen from him. Kizzy stole it from him, and then she was raped by a white slave master. And then Kizzy grows up and gets raped by Tom, some guy, white guy, a slave owner. And then she gives birth to Chicken George, and Chicken George comes out light skinned, and he's mixed, and he has and then it deals with all the way to Alex Haley being born. So this is a very thick book. It's like that thick, but it's a very good book. I read it, and it's a very wonderful book. It took me like 3 days to read it. It took me 3 days reading it. It's a very entertaining book, but most of that stuff in there is fake, especially Kunta Kinte. There was no Kunta Kinte. I did read that there was a Kunta Kinte, but he died when he was like 9 or 10. Chicken George is real. I think Kizzy is real. Tom is real. All those are real people. Up at the beginning of the book, the first half of the book is fake. Everything about Kunta Kinte and that, but a lot of Africans were stolen from Africa. They were humiliated, they were beaten, they were abused, mistreated, put on the ship. They would throw up on the ship, and they would pee on the ship. They would poop on the ship. There was no air conditioning. They were hot on the ship. They were sweating on the ship. Black women had hairy legs. They couldn't shave their legs. There was no shaving. They let them all hairy and stuff. Black men grew hair all over their face. They were hairy, and it was horrible. The black children on the ship were couldn't survive because because they were so weak. Children, it was horrible, and they were whenever a black slave would die on the ship, they would throw him into the water. So and then all this bad stuff was happening to the black slaves. So you can imagine that black people were totally abused, because they had to fight. They didn't, black people were scared in Africa. They saw these, and they also have to deal with the fact that, in Roots, the 1977 Roots, we see black slaves capture the black people from Africa, and that's true. So, they did send black slaves to go capture black people from Africa and force them onto the ship. It's like I said, I read the book, entertaining. Miniseries is entertaining. There's 6 parts to it. It discovers his family history, life, and his everything that and it's very entertaining. But some of that is fake. It's not real. Alex Haley was sued in I think 1990, early 90s. He was sued and lost about $1 million. He was sued for about $1 million. He lost, because he stole it. He stole everything he's in the book. He pretty much stole from somebody else's. It's like copyright infringement. He plagiarized somebody else's work. A white guy, he stole everything in the book. He's pretty much stole it from white guy. So most of the stuff that you read if you read the book, the Alex Haley book, most of that stuff in there is fake. Some of that stuff is fiction and nonfiction. Some of the stuff in there is fake. It's just something he just wrote from he stole from somebody else's. And he actually got famous for stealing somebody else's work. He was sued, and he also made another. He wrote another book called Queens. It's about his ancestry, about his a woman who is mixed, and it has to deal with her life growing up as she has white blood and black blood, and also her problems of being not fully black, not fully white. She's mixed, so she has to go through life being half white, half black. She goes in the that's he also made it came out in 1993. There was a movie called Queens, which was that's about a biracial woman who's half white, half black, which was played by Halle Berry, and it's about her life, a woman growing up, and it's confusing because a lot of biracial people are confused. They don't know if they're white or black. They got two sides of them. They have a white parent and a black parent. Then they grow. They can't. Sometimes they can't choose sides, so they just tell people I'm half white, half black. They're light skinned. They can't. Sometimes they're not accepted by black people because they're so fair skinned. They're so light skinned. And then they're not accepted by black people because they're light skinned, and people pick on them, and a lot of people are jealous of them because they're so light skinned. And they're not accepted by white people because they're darker than white people. You know, they're light skinned, but they're not white. So they go through a lot of problems in their life. But Alex Haley, he wrote a good book, but it's fake. He made a good miniseries which came out in 1977, which was good. There's also Roots and Next Generation. That's good too. But that's real. You know, the Roots and Next Generation is all that's all fiction. That's all true. But I know the book he made in 1976 is fake. You know, most of that stuff in that he wrote in that book is just fantasy. It's all stuff that he made up. But Mr. J here, peace.